All right. Hey, Ruth.
Hey Maya, how are you?
I'm good. So, yeah, this topic we're going to talk about. Okay, first of all, Ruth and I would like to make a clarification that there is a difference between being a Black woman in the Middle East who's grown up there, who's native to there, and a Black woman who's just an expat like we were.
Yeah, our experiences are most likely almost completely different, only because you have your family more involved in your life.
hmm And the religion
So
thing. And the religion thing is set you apart too. Because,
very
yeah. Because if you grew up Christian, you're kind of exempt from a lot of the rules that society will try to impose on you as a woman.
No, actually, you're not. It's just as bad as when you're Christian. I
Really?
don't know if maybe even worse. Yeah.
I had no
They're
idea.
the same.
I mean,
Yeah, a lot of.
okay, go ahead, girl. Sorry.
Oh no, go ahead.
I'm just so surprised that you're saying I had no idea. I had no idea. So you have to definitely talk about your experience being a Christian in the Middle East because I know you actively went to church and whatnot. I didn't. I grew up Christian, but kind of like I don't really subscribe to religion anymore. I don't practice religion anymore. So I always kind of felt, and maybe it's because of the people I met, but surprisingly, I met a lot more atheists in the Middle East than I had anywhere ever in my life. Um,
Maya, are you there?
oh yeah, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Well, it's completely different me being a Christian there as an expat as opposed to like my female friends as Christians there. Like I remember like some of my Christian guy friends, if anybody looked at their sister who was also Christian, they might kill them or even said their name, even just their name. And it was it's pretty interesting, but I think the rules definitely apply for both Christian and Muslims. I think it's more so of a cultural thing than anything else, because I just remember both sides, both my female friends that are Muslim and my female friends that are Christian, had the exact same restrictions and the exact same expectations from their families, specifically in behavior. And so I've had friends who had to like flee the country who are Christian because of whatever behavior. And obviously, this is not for the
I,
whole entire country, but for the area that I was living in.
I was thinking more of I got you with that one, but I was thinking more of being an expat while being non-Muslim at the same time. I feel like you're exempt from a lot of the rules and regulations. I'm not talking about the Christians who are in these countries. Um,
Okay, I think being an expat, whether you are Muslim and or not Muslim, just the fact that you're an expat and people know that, I feel like you're exempt from a lot because most of it is cultural, not religious.
gotcha. I don't know. I mean, from my experience, it's both. Like, I think if I was an expat but also Muslim, then the rules would, kind of like the expectations of what a woman should be or of what a woman should act like would still be imposed on me by the culture. Um, but since I wasn't, I think it's a combination. I think it's being an expat and also being non-Muslim that really gives a lot of privilege to women who go to these areas. And I don't know. I mean,
Well, do you remember when you came and visited me? But when we were both living in the same country, and one of my housemates was an American Muslim woman who wore an abaya and a hijab. I
really,
don't think,
Jordan?
huh? Yes,
Jordan? I don't remember that.
yeah. She's black as well from Georgia, um, originally from Sierra Leone, and yeah, and she wore like an abaya that obviously didn't show her figure at all. She tried to avoid that, and she wore hijab and everything. But ultimately, just because I spent a lot of time with her, I don't think she had like society expected from her the same as they would have expected from like a local woman.
I mean, and it's hard to say because she did kind of like the extreme thing of wearing an abaya. So, I mean, even most people in Jordan didn't even wear an abaya. And if for all the viewers who are watching, an abaya is like one of those long black dresses that cover your figure. And I mean, in Jordan, I met a lot of girls. They wore a hijab. They would be wearing their hijabs in cute styles and wearing like super tight clothes and stuff. So I don't know. I mean, she probably got different treatment because she looked like a very conservative Muslim wearing an abaya.
I feel like she got treated like me, honestly. I feel like we got treated pretty much the same because I spent so much time with her. Like we would go shopping together. There were some instances though, which it was really interesting. But you got to remember, this was at the height of like the whole crisis in 2016. There were instances where me and her we were looking for an apartment, and we would go to some places, and depending on who was there, they wouldn't look at me at all because I wasn't wearing an abaya. But one time we were looking at an apartment, and we were invited to this woman's house, and they wouldn't even talk to her, nothing. They wouldn't acknowledge anything about her. They were Christian, but they had also, at that time, there was some things happening in the region. So, like, in that instance where, sometimes I was ignored because of not wearing an abaya, and other times she was ignored because of wearing the abaya.
Mhm, mhm. I felt like okay, so just to give everyone's a heads up, I've lived in Jordan for over 2 years. No, that's not true. I lived in Jordan for almost 2 years. I've lived in Egypt for 2.5 years, and I've lived in Oman for 2 months when I was on a State Department scholarship program to study Arabic. And we're just gonna talk about our experiences in all these different places. These different countries are very distinct from one another. They are not the same, and our experiences have been different based off of where we have lived. Ruth has lived in. You can tell them where you've lived, Ruth.
Okay, so I've lived in the UAE for 2 years now. I've lived in Jordan for about 2 years, but I also did research there in college on and off for about 4 years. I've shortly lived in Lebanon and visited Syria for a bit.
Hmm. Nice, nice. I mean, if we want to talk about where I visited, the list is going to be a lot longer. But I've only I've only lived in Oman, Jordan, and Egypt. But I visited Lebanon. I love Lebanon. I've visited Palestine. I've visited the United Arab Emirates, Turkey, and I think that's about it. So like 4 countries that I visited, and then 3 that I've lived in. And I have to
Okay.
say, so the reason why I had to bring that in real quick is because I should have mentioned that in the beginning. But I thought about Oman, me living in Oman, when I didn't wear an abaya, I was definitely ignored. Definitely ignored. However, like I never wore an abaya in Egypt or in Jordan. Like I just didn't have to.
Yeah, no, I completely get that. Here too, I've noticed when I go to some higher end shops, which is actually really interesting, and I'm wearing like a black hijab, specifically a black hijab and an abaya, I get so much more respect. Um, yeah, it's crazy how much more respect. Like people are more attentive. They're showing me around. But if I just go in with like jeans and a t-shirt, like
Which
everyone
country are
ignores
you talking
me.
about?
In the UAE right now.
Mhm. I can definitely believe that because I had the same experience when I was in Oman. And the UAE and Oman are bordering each other. Like you can drive to the UAE from Oman, and I've done that before.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, no, definitely. But when I think about my experience in Egypt and Jordan, um, I felt like, particularly in Jordan, I felt like because I was an expat woman, because I was clearly a foreigner, because I was Christian, it's kind of like they didn't expect me to do all of the things that they would expect the women of their culture to do. Like when it came to staying in the house, like not going outside, not talking to certain men or any man for that matter. Like it was kind of like, oh well, she's off doing her own thing, so you can't
I
enforce.
think part of it, oh, sorry.
No, no, go ahead. Yeah.
I think part of it was because of the city that you lived in.
Mm, mhm.
Because if you lived where I lived, I think there would have been a little bit more. expectations of you,
Mhm.
or people would be gossiping about you because that was a little bit of my reality, but it's still not the same as, someone who's from there.
Yeah, definitely. Oh, that's a really good point. So I live in Amman, Jordan, which is the capital. It's the largest city. It's the most um, progressive city that Jordan has. A lot of foreigners go there, a lot of travelers, a lot of expats live there. Pretty diverse because of all the multicultural people coming. Um, but Ruth, you lived in Madaba, right? Which is like a Christian town.
Sorry, my internet cut off again. Yeah, and I lived about 30 minutes away from Amman, which it was a majority Christian town. But then when I say majority, you gotta also take into consideration the majority of Jordan is 94 Muslim, and I think about 4% Christian. And then the rest identify as other. But like where I was living, it was known as like a Christian area. There was, Jesus's baptismal site and everything, and so it was a lot more conservative. It wasn't as intermixed as Amman. It was mostly just like the local population, and then there were a few of us. Expats. In the summers, of course, there were more expats, but it was mostly like the State Department students, like learning Arabic. But once they were gone, there were very few of us. So I felt like most of the people in town knew something about us only because we just like look so different. Like as far as I know, there was about 10 of us working in one area, and I'm sure there were others, but like 10 in the middle of the city.
Right. And so this town was named Madaba. It's pretty relevant in history. Historians definitely go to Madaba often. Archaeologists go there because of the ancient biblical sites. Um, but yeah, so you brought up something that we should probably focus on from now on, and that is like the fact that you look so different that you would draw a lot of attention.
Yeah. Um, well, actually, the craziest thing, I never felt like I looked the most different in Jordan,
Mhm.
but I never really felt out of place, and no one really went out of their way to make me feel out of place, which
Mhm.
is the complete opposite about where I'm living now, which is known as being like one of the most diverse places in the world. You have people from all over the world,
Mhm.
but like for the first time in my life, I started thinking about my race being in a country where there are so many people that do look like me, because you have so many people from like different countries in Africa. You have so many like African Americans, or even like African Europeans, or just in general. But like I've never actually felt discrimination. Well, like, and I can't even say I've like felt it that much because it's a little bit different. But like seeing it, I've never felt it as much as I have here, which is just absolutely crazy. In Jordan, I don't remember anyone ever going out of their way to make me feel different. If anything, they always try to make me feel included. Like, oh, you have to come to our house for lunch right now, or you have to do this, or just, I want to know more about you, and not for anything other than wanting to know me.
Mhm. I agree. So in Jordan, well, actually, I didn't feel out of place in Jordan, but I think out of all the countries I've been to, it was the least racist when it comes to the Middle Eastern countries that I've lived in, or the countries in that region. Like all the Arab countries I've lived in, Jordan was the least racist. And if they say something that was, you know, problematic or racist with, it didn't come from um an evil place or a malintended place. It just came from kind of ignorance. Um I remember one time I was in a Jordan shop in downtown in Wasat al Balad, and a guy came up to me. He was like, "Where are you from?" I was like, "I'm from the United States." And he was like, "Yeah, yeah, 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 yeah. I know you have the United States passport, but where you're from? Where's your family from?" I'm like, "Oh, they're from the United States. Like we're all American. back from hundreds of years were all American. And he's like, honey, let me help you understand something. He's like, you may have an American passport, but you'll never be an American because your ancestors were slaves. Right. So that moment it really made me realize that from now on, me being in a region, people are going to have a hard time associating someone that looks like me to being from America, because they automatically think that if you are if you're American, that means you're automatically white, right?
You know, the funny thing is, Maya, do you remember like every time we would go out, I think you mentioned something to me. I never actually told people I was American. I always said I was from Tanzania, only because I wanted to gauge on how people would treat me. And for the most part, no one really cared.
Mhm, 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 mhm. You know what? Okay, great point. That's an excellent point. Okay. So during my time in the Middle East as well, I would switch it up, right? Like I stopped telling people I was from America. That was like when that story that I just told, that was like when I first got into Jordan, like the first couple of weeks. As time went on, I started telling people, I just started guess. I just be like, guess, where you think I'm from? And they would say all these different countries. They never said America. And I would just be like, yep, you're right. And whatever they guess is what I said, that's where I'm from. And people still treated me pretty well. It's just, I felt like when I would tell people I'm American, people would try to treat me extra well because it was kind of like they wanted to jump in with a proposal later, like, will you marry me? I've had experiences where I was in a taxi and they're like, where are you from? I'm like, oh, I'm from the United States. And they're like, oh, will you marry me? Immediately.
You, you know, I had a really funny experience. I had gone on a date with this guy maybe twice, and he was like, "Where are you from?" And I'm like, "I'm from Tanzania." So this guy thought for a moment, he was contemplating, and then he asks, and he's like, "When are you supposed to leave Jordan?" And I told him it was like in like 2 months or whatever. And he goes, "Do you want me to marry you so you could stay here?" And I just thought it was the funniest like reversal. It was.
Marriage is like nothing over there. Like marriage is like you get married here, get married there, like proposals everywhere.
No, that's the crazy thing, Maya, though. Like for Christians, if you get married because he was Christian, if you get married as a Christian, you can't get divorced without the Pope's approval.
Whoa, that's too much. Hey
Yeah.
Phillips, hey, how you doing? But yeah, and I mean, let's talk about though. I mean, you've never had any experiences. That's interesting. So you said you've experienced a little bit more anti-black racism in the UAE rather than in Jordan. I can't, I mean, I've experienced a lot of ignorant people in Jordan. I've experienced people yelling Ya Samra in the street to me. And Samra means like dark skin or dark girl. It's like kind of like the equivalent, it's like a sexualized version of Blackie. Like it's like, hey, Ya Samra. And I mean, it can be the weird thing about this word is that it can be taken in a like it's not necessarily derogatory, but it can be derogatory. Um, and I've had people yell that to me in the streets. Yeah.
Yeah, one time I went to this restaurant and it was like it had live music. And me and a friend walked in and we're both black and they started playing a song about a dark skinned woman. That was like one time I was like, okay, this is weird. Yeah. And like, because like, Egyptians have a lot of songs about dark skinned women.
A lot of them are dark. Like
Yeah, like it was just it was to me it was really weird because clearly it was about me and my friend because there
wait,
was
wait,
no
which
one
country
else.
was this in? Which country was this in?
This was in Jordan.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
No, but here. Oh, go ahead.
oh, I mean, I'm just saying, like, I just feel like I've experienced a lot of like I I'll just say that a lot of men that I've come across in the Middle East have like either a fetish or a preference for black women. Like they look at black women like, wow, this is different. This is exotic. Like we don't have so many black women here. And I don't know. I just feel like it draws a lot of attention if you are black in these places, especially a black woman. And there's just like the special sexualization of being a black female in these places as well. I don't know. What do you think?
Oh, I definitely agree. I have had so many messages from random men who are just like, oh, I just love your skin tone. I just love this about you. What in Jordan here in the UAE, the one thing I get all the time is, "Oh, I like that your lips are natural," and I'm just like,
Okay. No, I have noticed. No, listen, I have definitely noticed a lot of those women in the UAE have fake lips.
a lot, not just the women, like a lot of women in general here, yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
So that definitely is a topic that comes up all the time. My lips, which is just ridiculous.
But a lot of, I have seen it myself though. Like a lot of those women have fake lips. Like they've gotten surgery, they've used those suction cup things that suck out their lips. It's weird. It's so strange.
Yeah. Well, lips and body, they're like, oh yeah, and your body is real too, because that's also a really popular thing.
Mm-mm.
It's crazy.
So yeah, I mean,
Then
but at the same time, I can't say all of it's bad. I do like that just in general, men are very helpful to women. They're always ready to extend a helping hand if you need anything. Like I've had men go out their way to like show me where to go out their way to tell me what to do if I'm lost, or I've had guys like see me waiting for the bus and they'll pick me up and take me to where I want to go. Don't even ask for my number. They don't want anything from me. They don't expect anything from me. It's just men are just very, very helpful. And that was like the first time I've experienced that. I've never experienced people so like interested, like, oh, do you need anything? Da, 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 da. Like, it was not like that in Oman, I have to say that, but it was definitely like that in Jordan and kind of like that in Egypt. But Egypt, I didn't even really talk about Egypt. Egypt has a lot of issues with like self-hate and racism because, they're an Arab country, but they're in Africa. So it's like a lot of them are black, but they're in like denial that they're black, or a lot of them are not black and they like to pretend like Egypt's not in Africa and like the native people aren't black. So just being black in Egypt is really, really strange because there's a lot of anti-blackness due to the fact that they have this identity crisis because there's a bunch of like people who don't natively come from Egypt living in Egypt, in which is an African country. So I'm not really into that so much, but I'm just going to say it all in all, like there is a fetishization of Black women in this region, and just in general, it was a really different experience for me being a Western woman and going into the Arab world and just seeing how like helpful and attentive the men are, and it's just like this idea that women shouldn't do anything. Like I remember one time, this one experience I had in Egypt where I just met this guy on the street, like he was an expat like me. He was like German. And well, no, he was like German and Egyptian. And I go to a kiosk to buy some water. And I'm like, I pull out my purse and I'm like pulling out my money to buy the water. And then like the kiosk owner was like, no, you're in Egypt now. Like the men have to pay for anything. So he looked at the guy and was like, where's your money? And I was
what did
like,
the guy say?
he took out the money and paid.
That's that's amazing.
He's like, I know you're not from Egypt, but he was like, you're in Egypt now. Like, I'm like, sir. So, I mean, just experiences like that are this is, and like I said earlier, like Egypt, Jordan, and Oman are very distinct countries. Like my experience in each of these countries are not the same, but there are, there is like a tendency to have certain experiences. And one of the tendencies is that if you're a woman, you should expect men to be very helpful. Cause I don't
Yeah.
know.
But the one thing in Jordan, I don't know if you experienced it, if you were with someone or people knew that a guy liked you, you were basically untouchable. Like if anyone else talked to you, it could really cause issues,
Especially if
which was,
they're possessive, you know.
yeah, just in general, like it was. That was definitely something different, but interesting.
Hey Vegeta, hey. Did you have any experiences like that where like some guy lay claimed on you and you didn't know, and so all the other guys kind of just like,
Yeah, the very first time I went there, I went on an archaeology dig. I think it was like 2009, 2010, one of those years. And there was a guy, I had met him. He did not speak any English. I did not even know, I couldn't even say hi in Arabic, nothing. But he laid claim on me, I guess. And it was so weird because like all these guys just kept avoiding me.
weird.
Like, and then one time this guy came and started talking to me. I don't know why. And then somebody else came up to him and then he just walked away. Like another guy came up to him, said something, and he walked away. It
Yeah,
was really weird.
yeah, that sounds kind of weird.
But that was like the very first time it happened. But it was okay. It was in an even more rural area than Madaba.
Yikes.
So you can imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that actually, that's okay. So I think we should wrap it up for now, but I think I want to talk about men laying claim in general, since I think I've had an experience like the last live I had. Some guy lay claimed on me. I'm like, homie, like I don't even know you. Like, why? We should just talk. We should talk about that, but maybe not in this video because it's not really the topic. But yeah,
Sure.
let's discuss that, and then we can come back and talk about that because I think that's very strange behavior. But yeah, so all in all, I think we should. So we just had like a little banter, a little overall kind of review on what it's like to be a black expat woman in the Middle East. But we can. This is a topic that we can go on and on and on for a while. So we'll come back and make another video about this. But for now, we will see you lovely people later. Any closing remarks, Ruth?
Yeah, I would just say like so many people have these stereotypes and fears about a lot of Middle Eastern countries, especially being black or women. I feel like my advice would be just go visit. Like for the most part, people are so helpful. Like one of the things that I absolutely loved about Jordan when I first moved there, the women, like women really are helpful to one another. Like this one elder woman, she was looking out for me. I had no idea who she was, but like if I was walking down the street at night, she would always just like come out and say hi to make sure I was okay. And then it was actually really interesting because the very first time I arrived in Dubai, I knew absolutely no one. I didn't even have a phone on, nothing. And I went to the grocery store and there was this woman. I don't know if she was local or not, but she was like wearing a black abaya and a hijab. And she came up to me and she like looks me in the eye and she goes, "You're running away from something." She goes, "I'm a mother. I know you're running away from something back home, and that's why you're here in this country." And I'm just like, it was really random because she was slightly right, but like I think for the most part, like the women really do look out for one another, and so I would say don't have much of hesitation to go visit these countries.
I agree. Absolutely. Well, thank you, Ruth. We'll come back and talk about this topic a little bit more. But for now, we're gonna go brainstorm on another topic. So see you later. Bye.